All right, let's get started. So, thank you for joining our webinar, first ever webinar for host tips for success. So, before we hop in and start talking, I'd like to just emphasize why we're all here. Hosts and Sniffspot in general are really about making the world a more dog friendly place. So the world and cities are not created for dogs. So with Sniffspot, we're really about how we can make the world a more dog friendly place to enable dogs to have a better life despite the world not really being designed for dogs. Let's hop in. So starting out here, how to be this is kind of our agenda for this webinar, and I see someone just joined, so feel free. I think you should be able to unmute yourself if you'd like to, and you can feel free to ask questions as we go through or whenever if you have any. And this will all be recorded, so we can we can also have this recorded for later as well. So what we're going to cover today, first thing I'd like to emphasize is that as a Sniffspot host, you can really make a difference in how successful you are. Our most successful hosts, ones that are out doing stuff and doing activities to increase their visitors, are much more successful than hosts that are not doing things to increase their visitors. So you actually have a lot of control over how successful you can be as a host. What we're going to cover in this webinar is just three things, three areas that will lead you to being more successful as a Sniffspot host. First is creating an amazing listing for your Sniffspot. Second is providing a great experience for your guests. And last is marketing your spot to make sure that people around you can know that your spot exists. So let's hop in and talk about the best spot listings. So this is what I want to cover for creating the best listing for your spot. First, I want to emphasize that all this information can be found in our help center. I'm including a link in this webinar, and I'll publish this presentation following the webinar, so you can access all this through the link. For the best Sniffspot listings, how to make your listing just the perfect listing. First, make a friendly host profile with a clear personal photo. People that are visiting your spot, your guests, they want to know who you are. They're coming to your property. They're bringing their dog there. This is a personal thing. They want to know that you're a real person, that you're friendly. So just providing a clean host profile, it doesn't have to be anything extensive. With a clear photo of your face is enough to really build a lot of trust with people that might be visiting your spot. Second, have complete listing information. This is also pretty straightforward. Through your host account, you can go into your listing and just fill in all of the listing information that you might have there. Number three, and this is a really important one that is often a sticking point for hosts, add 5 to 10 really amazing photos of your spot. Many hosts don't do this, and it makes a huge difference. Number four, make it really easy to book your spot. This is another one where a lot of hosts don't do this, and it can make a huge difference. And number five, make sure that every guest that visits your spot actually writes you a review. This can also make a huge difference. We've seen that reviews on spots make a massive difference in how many new visitors they have and even in the repeat visitors they have. So let's hop in. For this, for going in depth for this webinar, we're just going to cover the last three: adding better photos to your spot, making it easier to book your spot, and making sure that every guest that visits your spot writes a review. And again, the detail on all of this, even things we don't cover here, can be found in our help center. So let's talk about photos. We're just going to walk through a few tips for how to make great photos for your spot. The first tip is, and this is a really easy one, make your photos in landscape format, not in vertical format. So as you can see on the left, this is a photo that's in vertical format. It's someone on their phone or using their camera that is holding it vertically to take that photo versus holding it horizontally to take a photo. It actually makes a huge difference in how it feels to someone viewing it. So it's a really easy one to do, to make all your photos in landscape format and not vertical, and it makes a big difference. A few other things that are important for photos. Variety. So when people are looking at your photos, they want to get a feel for your spot. So showing them photos from every angle of your spot will help people feel a lot more comfortable. People want to know, what's the fencing like? What's the ground like? What's the surrounding area like? So by providing a variety of photos, you can really help with that. Resolution matters. So having photos that are at least 1,000 by 700 pixels can make a big difference in just having a clear, crisp photo that helps people feel like it's higher quality. Cleanliness matters. So before you take photos, just clean up your spot, remove clutter, and make your space look very spacious and inviting. Time of day matters. So the golden hour, which is right after sunrise and right before sunset, you've probably noticed times like this where the light just makes things look great. That's a perfect time to take photos, and it can make a big difference in the quality and clearness of your photos. Subjects matter. So for these photos, especially the main photos for your spot, avoid photos that focus on people and dogs. Make the photos more about the space, because then people can see the space and they can imagine their dogs in the space. They're not imagining other dogs and people in the space. Features matter. So with your spot, emphasize photos of amenities and unique features that you think people would like. Because when people see those things, it's going to pique their curiosity. It's going to make them want to come visit. So by following these tips, it can actually help a lot. Let's walk through some actual examples of what good photos could look like for different scenarios with spots. So these are some examples of what good photos for a smaller type spot would look like. You can see here, they're in horizontal. They're taken with bright, clear light. They have kind of a good aspect and focus. Their subjects are clearly framed in the photos. You can kind of get an idea of, if you're looking at photos that you're adding, do they look like this? Here's another view for a larger spot, someplace that's more showing land. You can see that, again, they're horizontal, they're good light, they're kind of framing the subject in a way that's really attractive. So when you're looking at photos that you're adding to your spot, think about, do they kind of have the same look and feel as these type of photos? And lastly, amenities. So if you have really interesting things that are worth including about your spot, like agility equipment, even including chairs, shelter, seating areas, anything that would kind of make your spot stand out, including that in the photos, can be a really helpful thing. So let's move on to talk a little bit about making it easy to book your spot. And I'm going to go into more detail on this as well. So there are really three key things that can make it super easy for someone to book your spot. Our guests are looking for a place to bring their dogs frequently. As such, and in this day and age, people want to have a super easy experience booking a spot. So to make it seamless, do these three things. First, set the right booking preference for what you need. And I'll go into more detail on what booking preferences are and how you should set them. If you need advance notice, you can set that so people know exactly when they can actually book so you're ready for them to visit. And number three, keep your calendar up to date. And I'll go through more detail on how exactly you can do that as well. If you do these three things, it's going to make it so easy for people to book your spot that it'll really increase the availability of your spot to your guests. Let's talk about booking preferences. There are two options for booking preferences. One is booking, the other is request to book. So booking is a booking preference where you can, basically any guest can book your spot without waiting for a confirmation. This is our preferred way of booking. It's really nice for a guest to be able to see a spot, see an available time, and know when they click book and they pay for that spot, they're going to be confirmed. That's a very nice instant gratification for guests. This is our preferred way of booking, when a guest can just see available time and then book that time and have it be confirmed. If for whatever reason you can't, if for whatever reason you aren't comfortable or you want to try it by waiting for a confirmation, you can select request to book. In this case, when a guest goes through, selects a time and pays, they're requesting that time. You'll be sent a notification. You need to confirm that time, and then the guest will be confirmed. Well, they'll get where they get your access information and your address so they can actually come visit. And they're not confirmed until you accept them to come visit. So these are our two booking options. The easiest thing the easiest thing for the guest, and actually the easiest thing for the host, is to choose booking. So let's talk about advance notice. You can set up to 24 hours of advance notice for your spot. What this means is, let's say someone wants to book and come visit your spot. How far in advance do you have to be notified so that you're ready for them? Like, for instance, maybe you need to unlock the gate, or you need to do something else to get the spot ready for a person to visit. You can say, hey, I need 2 hours of advance notice in order to get my spot ready. And you, like I said, you can set up to 24 hours depending on what you need. This is another important one. Many of our guests are looking for spots that they can book last minute. Like, they get home from work and their dog needs exercise and they want to book something for that evening. So the less advance notice you can give, the better. If you have available times on your spot, making it such that your spot is completely available and ready for anyone to visit during those times is ideal. So many of our most popular hosts actually don't set advance notice, and most of our hosts don't set advance notice. So this is something that you can use just if you need that time to provide a good experience for your guest. So keeping the calendar up to date. This is something where most hosts get the idea of having a calendar with available times. We get a lot of questions from hosts about how do they actually update the calendar? How does it actually work? So I want to actually take you through a test listing to show you how the calendar can be updated and how you can keep your calendar up to date. So your spot only shows as available during times when you can actually have someone come visit. So let me take you over to that. All right, so you should be able to see this test listing that I've created in my own personal account now. So if you log into your account, this is what you'll see for your listing. If you want to edit and update your calendar availability, you can go to the calendar tab. Your calendar will load. You can see here that it, just like any other calendar, it shows available times. So let me show you how you can edit times that you already have blocked out. So to start with, let's say right now my calendar is blocked from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. My spot is not available. And that is every day of the week, my spot is blocked during those times. So in this case, it's getting to be winter. I want to block out my time until 7 a.m. when it starts getting light outside. So I can just change the time here and I can click save. And then you can see here that the block is updated. And it's updated every day of the week indefinitely. So it goes forward every day of the week. Let's say that I have a doctor's appointment where I want to block out a specific time. I have a doctor's appointment on Wednesday the 9th at 9 a.m. So I'm going to block out time from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. You can simply select those times on your calendar, and it sets up a time where you can block it, and then you can save your time, and your calendar is saved. If there's any time where you make a mistake, let's say actually this availability was on the 10th, then you can go in and you can edit your calendar to change that date. If there's any block you have, which is no longer necessary, you can simply open the calendar editor and delete that block, and the block is removed from your calendar. So that's how calendar editing works. Like I said, this is super important for keeping your calendar up to date because it can cause issues, especially if you're set to booking when a guest sees an available time and wants to come visit, but your spot is not actually available. So making sure you keep your spot up to date can really help with making things really easy for your guests. So let's move on to the next piece of having a great listing for your spot. What we've covered, what we just finished covering was making it easy for people to book your spot. And now we'll talk about the final piece of having a great listing, which is getting reviews. So this is really easy, and a really important part of having a great listing is getting reviews. When you're first starting out, you don't have any reviews or you don't have many reviews. Getting every guest to write you a review can make a huge difference. Just getting your first review can make a huge difference for your guests. So what you can do after a guest visits, just follow up with them. Follow up with them through our messaging system and ask them for feedback and ask them to write you a review. This can be an easy way to get reviews on your spot, and that can just make a huge difference. If you have no reviews, getting one review makes a massive difference. And if you have 1 or 2 or 3 reviews, getting up to 10 reviews or more makes a massive difference on how comfortable people are with visiting your spot. So getting more reviews can make a major difference. So that concludes our section on providing a great listing to represent your spot. Now let's talk about arguably the most important part of being a great host. In fact, definitely the most important part of being a great host, which is providing a great experience for your guests. Our most popular hosts get 2/3 of their business from repeat guests. So providing a great experience for your guests is a super important way to build up a large number of visitors by getting those repeat visitors to come back. So let's talk about providing a great guest experience. Here are the things that really make a difference for providing a great guest experience. Number one, make sure that your listing sets accurate expectations. So this goes back to providing a complete listing. Fill in all the information for your spot. Make sure that everything in your listing is accurate. So when people show up, they're going to see what they expect to see, and they're going to have the experience they expect to have based on your listing. you don't want people to have any negative surprises when they show up. Make visiting your spot pleasant for guests and their dogs. And we'll talk a little bit more about this because there are some things that are a little bit counterintuitive to some people about about what it means to provide a pleasant visit for guests and their dogs. Make it easy to find your spot. You'd be amazed how often guests have trouble locating their spot, or even aren't sure if they've arrived at the correct spot when they get there. Number 4, keep your spot clean. This is really about picking up all the dog waste that may be in your spot if you have dogs yourself, and making sure that there's no, limiting the extraneous objects that are in your spot as well. So keeping a clean spot is something the guests really appreciate. Number 5, this is a fun one, providing amazing amenities. And we'll go into more detail on this because this is a place where you can really make your spot stand out. And number 6, providing great value by setting the right price. So we won't go into more detail on this, but it's basically about aligning the value you're providing with the price that you're setting. And the way you can do this is by experimenting with price. Don't be afraid to experiment with price. We recommend, especially when you're first starting out, to set a lower price. And then over time, as you become established, you can increase your price to reflect the fact that you've kind of got a built reputation in our community. And number 7, learn from guests and other hosts. This is the big one because every spot is different. Every spot attracts a different kind of customer. So you can't really apply just a cookie cutter best way to make a spot great experience for guests. You got to learn from your guests and learn from other hosts with similar spots to try new things. And again, similar to making the best listing for your spot, you can find all of this information in our help center. So these are the areas that we're going to go into detail for in this webinar. Making your spot pleasant for guests and dogs to visit, making it easy to find your spot, providing amazing amenities, and learning from guests and other hosts. Are there any questions, or I want to make sure that if any of the participants want to ask questions, then they can ask them. So participants, you should be able, if you do have questions, you should be able to unmute and ask them. If you don't have questions, obviously it's fine to just listen. All right, so let's keep moving forward. So making your spot pleasant for guests and their dogs to visit. For guests, it's pretty simple. So this is something that many hosts don't necessarily realize. Most guests actually prefer enjoying spots in privacy. So we recommend either one, giving a short introduction to guests and then letting them enjoy your spot, or setting up your spot to not require introductions at all. So guests can self-serve, can arrive there and visit and enjoy your spot without needing to check in or do anything like that. So this is nice for guests. Guests often they're going to spots to play with their dog or train or exercise. And they like just being able to go and enjoy their spots. So sometimes hosts feel like, oh, I have to entertain these guests or I have to hang out with these guests while they're there. That's actually not the case. Most guests enjoy just enjoying their spots in privacy. And as a host, you don't have to be entertaining these guests the whole time that they're there. For guest dogs, this is a really important part of providing a pleasant experience for guests and their dogs. Many of our visiting dogs are reactive. And what this means is that they might not get along well with people, dogs, or other animals. So it's really important to be sensitive to these guest dogs when they're visiting, and don't just assume that, don't make assumptions about guest dogs that are coming. So here are some tips for making sure that you're being sensitive to every guest dog that's coming to visit. First, always confirm in advance with a guest before approaching the guest dogs to welcome them when they arrive. You can do this through messaging. Either assume that you stay back and out of the way so that guests can have a kind of safe and pleasant entrance to your spot, or confirm in advance before you approach them. Always plan to keep dogs, people, and other animals separate from spots during visits. This is actually a Sniffspot requirement, that all spots need to be free of dogs, people, and other animals during visits. Make sure that people that live or work on the property are aware of visits. Sometimes people have roommates or there are workmen that are around on the property. So making sure they're aware of visits so there aren't surprises can actually make a big difference. And it prevents surprises in the spot. Like a workman might just go into the spot thinking they're going to repair something, and they'll come across a guest and their dog. And if the spot isn't closed, during spot visits, don't open gates or doors to the spot, because it could be that the dog will run through the open gate or door and exit the spot, and that obviously can cause issues and disrupt the visit. So if you follow these tips, it's actually it can make a really big difference with guests and their dogs for having a good visit. All right, so making it easy to visit your spot. So similar to this is again similar to this theme we've had about providing a really easy experience. People just want ease. So when someone's already booked your spot, when they're coming out to visit, making it easy to get to your spot. This is really important, especially because most of these spots are going to be unfamiliar to first-time guests. So it might really not be obvious how to get there or how to access the spot once they get there. You can help with this by providing clear access instructions. So in your host account, when you're setting up your listing, there's a field for access instructions. Make sure when you're completing that field to include parking information, the location of the Sniffspot entrance when you get there. If there's an access code, include that code. Include where the garbage is for the pet waste bags. And if there are any special considerations, make sure to include them. Think through in your head as a guest, what's it going to be like going to visit your spot? And what kind of questions would a guest have, and try to answer those, especially if you live in a space that's maybe not the easiest to find. Another great thing to do is add signs to help guests find your spot once they get there. Many of our spots have signs at the roadside, at the parking spot, and at the Sniffspot entrance. That helps make it really clear as a guest to know I'm in the right spot. This is how I go in, and it's very simple. And in our help center, we actually provide templates for those signs to make it really easy for you to get set up with those signs. Providing amazing amenities. So once someone comes to your spot, they get access to your spot, there's so much fun stuff you can do to help people have a great time in your spot. So amenities could be anything from agility equipment to signs, to custom welcome signs, to treats, to kiddie pools, to boxes with toys for the dogs. Really, the sky's the limit. And we've seen hosts be really creative with the kind of amenities that they provide. So you can try anything. Ask your guests what kind of things they would enjoy. Think about what you would enjoy playing with a dog, and you can really bring a lot of joy to your guest experience through the amenities that you provide. Here's a little more detail on the kinds of things that we've seen that are that are really cool for guests to have when they're going to visit. First, there's some things that we would call basics. These are things that guests that we would consider to be a baseline experience for guests visiting Sniffspots. So providing a trash can for dog waste bags, providing chairs, having water for the dogs, having some toys for the dogs, having signs so people can actually see where to enter the spot, and having sanitizer so that guests can sanitize any toys or water before and after they're visiting their spot. And we go into more detail in the help center on what kind of sanitizer we recommend providing. And then there's above and beyond things you can provide as amenities. And really the list goes on, but it could be agility equipment, kiddie pools, treats, lighting. If you have a restroom, the default with Sniffspots is that guests expect to not have any restroom available. If you have a restroom that's accessible directly to the outside, then providing a restroom option for guests can make a big difference for them. Providing visual barriers. So if you have neighbors, having some kind of visual barrier. Maybe it's if you have a fence that's not transparent, then that's obviously not an issue. But many have chicken wire fences or other kinds of fences. So you can add visual barriers to block neighbors' properties from your property, and same thing from your house to provide additional privacy to guests that are visiting your spot. But the list goes on and on. There's so many fun things you can do with amenities. So I would highly recommend to just get creative and think about fun things that can really make a difference for your guests. And the last thing we're going to cover today for providing a great experience for your guests is to learn from guests and other hosts. So this is one of the most important things because, like I said, every spot is different and it's going to attract different kinds of people. So innovating and finding your own niche is a really important thing to do. And a great way to do it is by asking guests what they thought, learning from guests. So you can message guests after they visit and ask them what they loved, ask them what they didn't love, and ask them how you can improve. And guests are often really happy to provide feedback to make things better. You can also learn from other hosts. So make sure to join our Sniffspot community group on Facebook. We have many guests and hosts that are frequently communicating in the group, and people love sharing ideas and getting feedback. So this is a really easy way to learn a lot and learn how you can make your Sniffspot better and better. All right, so moving along to the last thing we're going to cover today. Just to review, we've covered how to make a great Sniffspot listing, and we've covered how to provide a great experience to your guests. Now let's talk about marketing your spot. This is getting the word out so you can attract new customers to your spot. So here's a list of things you can do to spread the word about your spot. 1, get a custom promo code. Email support@Sniffspot if you want one, and we can give you a code that will give any first-time Sniffspot user $5 off their first visit to your spot. This is a custom code that only works at your spot. You can use this to market to new guests and offer a promotional rate to new guests. Number 2, get active on social media. This is big and it's easy, and we're going to go into more detail on what you can do there. Number 3, post flyers around town. This is also a great way to spread the word. It's a very easy way to spread the word. Number 4, add a yard sign in front of your house. We have templates for yard signs available in our help center, and it's a really easy way to get to make potential customers aware. People that are walking their dogs in the neighborhood or driving around the neighborhood, many of them have dogs. Many of them are looking for a better solution for how to get their dogs safe in private areas to play. So a yard sign can really make a big difference. Number 5, send emails to friends. Your contact list, you can send an email update to let people know of this new thing you're doing and make sure they're aware of your spot. Number 6, posting ads on Craigslist. Believe it or not, Craigslist is a great way to spread the word for customers. And we have more information on how to post those ads on Craigslist in our help center. So we have very detailed information that can help with that. Number 7, partner with local pet service providers. So make sure that your local vets, your pet stores, and other things know, and other places know that your spot is available and nearby. And lastly, print and hand out actual business cards. So always having a few cards with you. When you meet someone in a relevant conversation, you can hand them a card that has information where they can find your spot. And before we move on, as you all already know, all of this information can also be found in our help center. So make sure to check that out. These are the areas we're going to focus on. 2 things in more depth for marketing your spot today. First is getting active on social media, and number 2 is posting flyers around your town. So getting active on social media. So this is super easy and it's super, super effective. You can build a really big following by just doing these things. And it's not exactly the most intuitive thing. It's not just going and posting on Facebook about your spot, although that's great. The most effective thing you can do to spread the word about your spot is to join local Facebook groups. These are groups on Facebook that are related to the area in which you live. So it could be, if you live in Maple Valley, you can search on Facebook for Maple Valley and find local Facebook groups and join those groups. They're communities around your local community, people that care about what's happening locally and live locally. And through joining these groups, you can participate in conversation. You can post about your spot. You can participate in people having conversations about leash laws or dog parks or whatever else. And it's a great way to get the word out about your spot. Again, recommending joining our Sniffspot community Facebook group and just being part of the community. It really helps to raise awareness about your spot and get the word out. And lastly, there are so many social media platforms out there that are free and easy to post on and spread the word. Nextdoor is a great one. If you're not familiar, it's a locals only social network. So you can really effectively spread the word through Nextdoor. Instagram also, we've seen a lot of activity from people posting on Instagram, and Twitter is a great one as well. So getting active on social media and regularly posting about your spot, it's super fast. It takes less than a minute to post. It's very easy to do, and we recommend doing it regularly. And in our help center, you can actually find templates for what to post to help you get some ideas for getting started. Posting flyers around town. So this one is a great one because a lot of people that are kind of your target audience for your spot are just around town. They're going to local retail establishments, coffee shops, and by posting flyers, you can really easily make people aware of your spot. So we provide templates for these flyers. You can see the template here on this slide of the presentation. Very eye-catching and simple to make people aware of spots in the area. These are areas, we've done our own fair share of flyer posting in our local area, and these are areas that we've found really effective for posting flyers. Many coffee shops have a bulletin board for posting flyers. So do laundromats and community centers. Public dog parks often have bulletin boards. and pet services retail locations. So vets, groomers, pet stores, any kind of pet establishment. By visiting these places, you can very easily and effectively spread the word and get a lot of coverage from foot traffic from people that are interested in what you're providing. So this is a really great way to spread the word about your spot. So coming back to the highest level, we've covered creating a great spot listing, providing a great guest experience, and we just covered marketing your spot. The thing I want to emphasize here is that you can actually really make a difference in how many visitors you're getting at your spot by doing these three things. So making sure your listing is really great, making sure you're providing a great experience for your guests, and then going above and beyond with marketing. Our most successful hosts we see doing these three things really excellently and really being excited about innovating and figuring out new things they can do in those spots. So by following some of these tips, we think that you can really improve any success you've had with your spot so far.